Welcome to First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. I'm your host, James Gardner, certified athletic therapist, certified strength and conditioning specialist, yoga instructor, human being. This platform, for the pros, by the pros, anybody in the performance space, and beyond. Welcome here to share in the stories of professionals, experiences, journeys, learning along the way. It's a platform to connect, to network, and to be a part of a community that cares, with conversations that matter, experiences that resonate, and generate ideas, thought-provoking, organic dialogue, passionate pros. Brought to you as always by First Star Therapy, Mobility Tape, Epic, and Benchmark Athletics. In association with the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. It's First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being a part of it. All right, welcome to First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy roundtable. We are already at session 41. We have Myles Coldwell here of Coldwell Athletic Therapy. Myles, really appreciate you taking the time to be here, and for everybody who's here live, picking this up on archive YouTube channel, archive podcast now available. Really appreciate it. But Myles, taking the time, you're an hour ahead of us here in Ontario, out on the East Coast. So I know it'll be bedtime sooner for you, but appreciate you being here, man.
No problem. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to get the ball rolling, I guess.
Yeah, well, let's do it. Let's jump in. We'll go through the ground rules. I'll go through your bio, and then we'll get into your story, which I think is a fantastic one. I put it out there on social media that anybody who doesn't follow you should be following you at Coldwell Athletic Therapy. I think it's just an amazing story, and the stuff you put up, like you and I don't know each other, but I feel like we know each other based on, where you're coming from, what you're putting out there, and I don't know, maybe we even look the same. I don't know, a little bit. So, but let's jump in here with your bio, and then we'll get rolling, and you can kind of walk us through your story, your journey, and we'll navigate this thing. As always, our primary sponsor for Let's Chat is Mobility Tape, the only heat-activated kinesiology tape on the market. We had Jay, we had Luca and Jenna Lynn on last week, who are ambassadors of that product. A great product that we're trying not even to push, but just to put in people's hands and let them experience it. And I would encourage anybody who hasn't tried it yet to reach out to Jay and start trying that product. Again, it allows us to be a little bit more of who we are and access a natural analgesic in a tape product that a lot of people are using already anyway. So that's the primary sponsor at MT Mobility Tape. So that's the primary sponsor. Our ground rules, as always, we are live during this chat. So if you have any conversation that you want to touch on, questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to unmute yourself and or just type it in the chat box, and I'll filter over to Myles as we get going here. As I mentioned, Myles Coldwell is our guest this evening. He helps people reach their potential in sport and life through movement and manual-based therapy. Through movement analysis and systematic orthopedic assessment, Myles finds out what the body needs and feeds it with stimulating hands-on techniques and precise exercise prescription. He's honed his skills through a multitude of experiences, which include working under a number of popular therapists and sports physicians, including a stint as an intern for the Edmonton football team of the Canadian Football League. Myles is a strong believer that injuries are not setbacks, but are opportunities to get better. Myles will help all athletes, all people that he works with, return safely and efficiently to whatever they were meant to be doing. Whether work, sport, or play, Myles will have you back stronger than ever. And this is the stuff, man. Like, this is the stuff that it's all built on, athletic therapy. And this is what I want to continue to have these conversations with people who are, and I was thinking about this, and I was like, carrying the torch isn't the right term, but like taking your candle to the torch and going in your own direction and leading it that way. And your story is very much like, hey, people are putting up barriers, but they're not barriers to me. Those are opportunities for me. And I think this is where you and I sort of connect, even across the country here from Ontario out to Nova Scotia. So first off, again, like, thank you for being here. Let's hear about your story, but where are you exactly in Nova Scotia? And can you sort of situate us for those ignorant Ontarians that are on the call currently?
Cool. So I'm actually, my business is located in Lance, Nova Scotia, which is probably about 45 minutes outside of Halifax. I have been traveling. I have traveled into Dartmouth, and I still do on occasion. I work with a local gym there. And yeah, so if you know where Halifax is, about 45 minutes from Halifax, kind of between Truro and Halifax.
Okay, nice. So not a massive place. What's the population where you are?
That's a good question. I'm not sure what the population is, but
Yeah.
it is a smaller town.
Right.
It is one of the faster growing towns in Nova Scotia, if not Canada.
Okay, nice. No, and I don't mean to quiz you right off the bat, but it's interesting because these smaller
Yeah,
population places, you can make a huge impact in the community, right? And then word of mouth grows your business as much as anything else. And I'm sure that's a big part of what you're doing, and
huge.
just
Yeah.
in posting to social media, like having you on, and everybody should follow you. Have people from my networks and people that I know posting like I should have been following this guy a long time ago. There's a lot of great stuff going up here. So walk us through your story, because I think it's amazing, that you can take your own sort of fortitude, your own value system, and build it out from what you want it to be, and come up against a lot of resistance.
Hmm.
Maybe not resistance, might not be the right term, but barriers along the way, and turn those into opportunities. So I'll let you walk you through, because I know you had a great post about your story, the story behind the story, I think you
Yeah.
called it, something like that. So walk us through that,
Yeah.
and we'll get to know you a little bit.
All right. So I guess going back, I did an undergrad degree in a Bachelor of Science in Human Kinetics at St. FX. I graduated from there in 2013. I went into Human Kinetics just because I enjoyed movement, but really I had no idea what I wanted to do. And then from there, I applied to physio, didn't get in. So then I started applying for kinesiologist jobs, personal training jobs. Wasn't having much luck, and I had about 6 interviews before I got a kinesiologist job, and then I ended up working all over Nova Scotia as a kinesiologist for one company for 2 years. I was kind of shadowing multiple practitioners, chiro, physio. Never really heard about athletic therapy in the West. But when I left St. X, I was in as a kinesiologist. What I really enjoyed some of the clients I worked with, but I didn't mention to you earlier, James. It was very medical approach, which I wasn't a huge fan of.
Mm-hmm.
And like, for example, WCB, I didn't really enjoy working with the workers' comp type setting, because a lot of the clients didn't want to be there, and because they didn't want to be there, I didn't really want to be there. So I was kind of stuck. I know what I wanted to do. I physio again, so I applied for physio 2 years in a row. Didn't even get an interview, and my marks were fairly good. I struggled my first university, but I was able to get my marks up to what they needed to be. And I was so stressed about marks. And so then I got out of, or I was driving home one day. This is kind of where the story takes a turn. So I was driving home, came around a turn, headlights coming right at me. I was hit head on by another car. I didn't have time to react. Back of my car went up onto the side rail, smashed all the windows out of my car. The dashboard was wrapped around my knees. I couldn't even get out of my side door. And this is kind of the first time that I actually talked about this live. So I basically had to crawl across the seat to get out of my car, and luckily was able to walk out of my car. The other person wasn't so lucky. They through his window and he shattered his femur. And I remember doing 6 months of rehab for my shoulder. I bit down on my tongue. It was completely black, had bruising all across my chest. And I had been working with the exact same physio actually as a kinesiologist that I was going to see. And he was very helpful, kind of took me under his wing. Kind of had a little bit of a different approach because he did his physio over in the UK. And kind of had a sporting background. So that was kind of my first introduction to really being a part of it and being injured and actually going through that process. And then around that time, it's just like I could walk out my door and I could be hit by a car and die tomorrow. And then that's kind of been my mindset ever since. So there, I basically packed up what I could. I needed a change, so I quit my job as a cardiologist, packed whatever I could into 2 bags, jumped on a plane, and went with my girlfriend at the time to Slave Lake, Alberta. Kind of like the middle of nowhere. Didn't even have a job until the day before I jumped on the flight. So I got a job as a career coach of all things in the high school in Slave Lake, Alberta. Was actually making pretty good money, but it was a desk job, and I really wasn't enjoying what I was doing up there. But I was coaching the basketball team as well. And then there was an athletic therapist that worked in this small little tiny community up in Slave Lake, Alberta, which was like 3 hours from Edmonton, 3 hours from Grand Prairie. So it was like you had to go 3 hours to get anywhere, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Of all the places, there's an athletic therapist here, right? Not even a physio in town. So like she was treating the doctor, she was treating everybody. She was basically the physio, the chiro, the everybody for everybody in that small town. There was one chiro I remember because I'd been there a couple times as well. And she kind of introduced me to this wonderful world of athletic therapy. And I was like, what the hell is this? And
amazing.
Because especially on the East Coast, Nova Scotia, there's no, like, it's just non-existent. I think there's like 5 of us, maybe in private practice. Like other than a university setting, nobody would know what an athletic therapist does. So for me, going from Nova Scotia to Alberta, not knowing what that was. So then I kind of got interested, and I'm like, wow, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, so I applied for athletic therapy. And I got just out of the blue kind of thing because it looked interesting, thought I'd be interested in it. I got a letter in the mail, and it said, you've been denied access into the program. They said I didn't have the anatomy or physiology that I hired to get into athletic therapy. And I was just like, what are you talking about? So I called up my professor from St. FX, and he said, this is basically bullshit, right? So he sent a letter or an email, and then I got on the phone with Mark Lefebvre's is fabulous, and he's the program director over there at Mount Royal University, and with him, and I basically said, like, my teacher sent over the requirements. He says the anatomy is up to par, and Mark was basically on the spot, said, oh, well, congratulations, you're in the program. So in the past, nice. I probably would have just been passive. In the past, I would have just been passive and probably not even made the call, right? Because I'm like, I didn't get accepted. What's next? But I'm glad I made that call, because then, of course, getting accepted. So then I left my job as a career coach up to Slave Lake, packed everything up in a U-Haul vehicle, and traveled to Calgary. And there, we had to pass first responders. Like, there's first 2 weeks at the end of the summer, you have to pass first responders to get in. And usually like 5, or I think this year after me, I think 6 or 7 people didn't pass the first responders to get in. So they didn't even get into the program. They had moved into residence and didn't even get accepted. So that was like hell week. Like, that was basically, that was an eye opener for me, because I had to get through probably because there was people in the class that failed that had their first responders. Like, it was just, they do a kind of weed the people out kind of program at MRU. And so made it through a lot of late nights, but got into the program, and then just fell in love with the program. And a big part of it is too, because with that advanced athletic therapy certificate, I'm kind of joining the third years degree, right? So I'm coming in, and these guys are all stressed out about their marks, and I wasn't stressed about my marks at all, because I worked hard. Like, I did my best, but as long as I did my best, I wasn't too worried about my marks, because I knew coming out of school and how much I had stressed in my undergrad to get marks, and I'm going to enjoy this. And then my marks ended up being better than in my undergrad. So, but what other program can you walk in and your desk is basically a treatment table. From there, I worked with men's basketball at University of Calgary, and traveled all around, got to visit all the cities out west. I'd never been west before that, so that was fabulous for me as well. And then worked with Mount Royal University soccer. I think I was named MRU athletic therapist student of the year, and then got recommended by one of my teachers to do an internship with Edmonton Eskimos. And I still remember first day at the internship, I'm like, I don't even watch football. Like I named every sport except football. And here I am standing at my first CFL game on the sideline working for this incredible organization. So that was pretty amazing. But I also quickly found out that that wasn't what I wanted to do. Like I felt like it was pretty cool experience, but people would get injured, then you'd fix them or try to fix them for a week, and it was just like a Band-Aid. It'd be like over and over again, and it wasn't really what I wanted to do. And the first responder stuff, even though I was really good at it, I like to be prepared, and that I knew that I wanted something different. I didn't want the typical go do your field work in the evenings, take up your whole weekends and all that stuff. So that was kind of eye-opening for me, because most people that go into athletic therapy, they go into it with that idea of, man, I'm going to work pro sports. This is going to be amazing. But I quickly found out that it wasn't as amazing as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. No.
And then I guess from the, yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, sorry, man. I think we got a little delay, but no, I think these are just important pieces, I think, for students that are coming through and for younger therapists, and to know that it's okay to pivot. Like we use this term pivot during COVID a lot, but like during your career, you can pivot at any point you want. Just find the things that you jig with, with you, that resonate, and follow it. And I think you'll find something. Keep going, man. It's an amazing story. Yeah, ride through this one.
Yeah, definitely. So I did an internship there, and at the time I was also preparing for my exam. And that was also the year that they actually changed the exam so that you didn't have a practical exam. So like every school was, so in the middle, we were told until like 2 weeks before that we weren't doing that practical exam. Like we were kind of the test subjects for that. So then we ended up, so at MRU, they have the nursing labs. So basically, in replace of the practical lab, you walk in and basically you could have any scenario in each of the 3 labs that they had set up for you. And basically you were on video, and then they sent out the video and had other ATs kind of rank you. And then your score was kind of based on that, and but your teacher really knows how you react because they've seen you through the 2 years. So from there, I had planned when I left out there to come back and work with this physio that had treated me, and I'd worked as a kinesiologist. I was kind of set in my ways, and I said I'll go home and I was going to make something. I knew there weren't any jobs here, but family's here, and really the way I looked at it is I have no competition here. I just need to educate people on what I do. So basically packed up whatever I could, I remember, into my car. Kind of ironic, because I packed everything into a bag when I went out there, and then jumped into a car that I bought out there, and I met my dad's boat, and we drove across Canada. And then I got back, and the job that I had planned, since I'd been out there for the 2 years, really wasn't an option, and it just didn't work out. So I drove all the way across Canada and really didn't have that position offered to me. So from there, I was just looking around, like, what is there for athletic therapy? And there was this new school. It'd been open for about 2 years, Newbridge Academy. It was basically a sporting school, and Katie McDonald Ferris was working out of there. fabulous athletic therapist. I just walked in one day and she's like, actually, we're looking to hire, but I didn't know there was any ATs around. So basically, offered a job on the spot. And then I was traveling with the hockey teams, which was hard because we would leave basically all the schooling. A lot of it was on like iPad and online. And I basically jump on the bus sometimes Wednesday, and then wouldn't get back till Monday. And then I was trying to make a schedule as well, right? So I was trying to make money on that, and I was making very little traveling with these hockey teams because, well, out west, a lot of people will make a living just doing field work because you get paid pretty good for it. But here, like, I was getting paid next to nothing per hour, right? So, but it gave me a lot of time to think because I was sitting on a bus and I was learning on the bus, trying to figure out, okay, where do I go from here, right? But it was tough. That I've never been on a team that traveled so much. I've been with pro and university teams, but this private school would go down and play in the USHL or the US League, and they play in Toronto. So we'd go be in Toronto one weekend, and then the next weekend we'd be down in Massachusetts, right? There was like no in between. So we were on a bus, sometimes sleeping overnight for, we're doing like 20-hour bus drives.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I do not want to do this for another year. Like, I love being part of the team. I love doing this, but like, I'm living with parents at the time. And I had already lived with them for 1 year after university. And I swore I'd never be living with them again. So hopefully they're not listening to this, but and I'm glad I'm out now and living on my own and be able to afford my own place. But it was a good way for me to get to know what was out there, make some networking connections. And I basically started my business, Coldwell Athletic Therapy. I was actually looking back at my Instagram post, and I think my first post, I have it written down here. I think it was like September 22nd, 2018. Was my first Instagram post. And I basically just put it up because I'm like, I need to educate people. I'm on this bus for so long that I need to start putting stuff on social media. And didn't turn out what I thought it would be, because I was reading a book at the time that was saying it was good to do something like that. But it was great for me to learn, because I was teaching people and I was reminding myself of what I did know. I gained a lot of confidence just through putting stuff out every week, right? And basically after that, so I created Coldwell Athletic Therapy business, and I started outside of working for Newbridge. I started making connections with local gyms, ended up making connections with 360 Fit, one of the gyms in Halifax, that actually a friend that I grew up playing ball actually won a fast pitch nationals with. He said, man, you should come along. I'm opening up a location in East Hants. So I was traveling between Dartmouth and East Hants and working at Newbridge. And so I was treating right on the gym floor, and was starting to like it because, people would come in for class. Oh, what's that guy doing? And it was a great way just to get my name out there. And then I started seeing limitations to that, but it was just me. I could see looking back at it now, it was just me learning out what works, what doesn't. And I was just basically trial and error, trying to figure out, oh, what if I do a workshop here? Does that bring me in more clients? I was doing all of this stuff. And it was a grind for sure. And then, so from there, I guess up to that point I was building, and then COVID hit. And then I was like, man, I have nothing online. I do not want to do online stuff. I ended up doing some virtual stuff, but it wasn't where I was passionate about. For the first month, I thought it was great because my real passion is just learning. For the first month, I was just like absorbing books, like just absorbing marketing books, business books, basically everything I could get my hands on. Then after a month, I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. I need it talking to people. So I started doing a little bit of virtual stuff. And then I basically lived at my buddy's house, and I said, like, listen, like, I think we should go out on our own. Like, this is no better. And I think we talked about it, but we never really thought about going out on our own until COVID hit. So COVID, in a way, was a blessing in disguise. And then from there, we just kind of started thinking of ideas, and he knows the personal training and business side of things. He had done some stuff in the past. I knew the athletic therapy side of things. So I'm like, how do we combine these? So then we opened up Adapt performance training. So actually took what gym we had before with 360 Fit, kind of went out on our own, basically sold 360 Fit all their equipment back, all that stuff, and bought our own equipment, went on our own, and we were like, okay, now how are we going to deal with these COVID restrictions where we have to distance? So we were in a little room in the East End Sportsplex, which is basically 2 ice pads and a big, huge dome, field dome.
Okay.
And basically we took our little room and we're like, man, we aren't able to fit anybody in here. So we approached Scott, the manager, and we were just like, listen, like, if nobody's going to be on the ice, can we move our mats, all of our equipment down onto the ice surface? So that's where we've been for the last came up with was Impact, and that got shut down because there was somebody already had it. So then we were like, frig this, we've been adapting time. So we just called it Adapt. And we've been adapting ever since for the last 4 months. So we have all these mats, this big, huge space on the floor. We've been doing hockey training all summer. We're getting into personal training. We've got fitness classes. We've got a couple. We've got 4 on staff right now, just part time. So it's been a crazy 4 months. And we've been kind of playing around, like we've been looking for spaces because we got the numbers to go out on our own and open up a facility. But really, with Quebec and you guys spiking a little bit, we're kind of a little bit worried. And if everything shut down again, we don't want to be stuck in a space, because was lucky with that. If everything shuts down, we don't have to pay rent. So they have ice in one surface, but they're talking about, and we'll know November 1st, whether the ice does in, and if we can stay in for the year, that would be perfect for us until we can find a space. But what happens, we're here to stay, and we're gonna adapt like our business name. So yeah, kind of my story in a brief outline of my story. Anyways, I could go into detail with a lot of other things, but it's pretty crazy when I think about it and reflect talking about it.
No, it's an amazing story, and there's so many pieces of this that we can sort of backpedal down and jump down a bunch of rabbit holes. But first and foremost, talking about that accident that was so personal for you, and putting that out there in a public space. So I want to thank you for that. I know that's not easy, but at the same time, Myles, that very much is that's the feel that I get from your social media. It's authentic, it's genuine. That vulnerability is there. You don't have to be right all the time, but you're living what you want to be doing, and I think that shows. And I think that's riddled throughout your story. And I also kind of feel like on a personal level, I feel like a lot of your experiences, although maybe a little shorter lived than mine, are very similar. I spent years in professional baseball versus an internship and then pivoting, and I've come very much around to this space that you're in right now, and that's following your heart, following your passion, and putting all those things in place. But what a cool story to like find yourself in the place that you found yourself, where there is like an athletic therapist in the middle of nowhere. And then that to be your first real exposure to athletic therapy. And there's no doubt in my mind that shaped exactly your adaptive mindset to where you are now, because you don't even need a title, right? Like, you have so much experience and breadth and scope that to call yourself an athletic therapist, sure, by title, but you can be in any space you want to be in with this profession, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. You just got to be creative.
And that's it. And I know I read with some of the stuff that you posted, and definitely for me as well, is like coming back from, we were away for 2 years and sort of doing some unrelated yet made it relatable, and then coming back in, it was like, well, where's that perfect place to work? And that perfect place to work was like, well, without any restrictions or guidelines on my creativity or my ability to think and follow my passion, it's right here. You know what I mean? And so while the jobs
Yeah.
may not be there, the work is between our ears. You know what I mean? As athletic therapists, and I think this is a message that's massive for anybody who is struggling right now, or in a job that they feel like they shouldn't be in anymore, or they're not going to find work. I think it's listening to guys like you. Victoria Cleary was on here a couple weeks ago, another small town, but like has made it, you know what I mean? In terms of like, yeah, navigating the military, navigating a small community, being the go-to person, because you lead with all of these authentic things. One of which you touched on already is educating people, patients and athletes. So where does that sit in terms of your priority list when it comes to working with other human beings at that education piece?
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, is it like
you,
one
you
of
mean
yeah,
yeah
is it a primary focus of yours with everybody that you work with, or is it just sort of following naturally, or you know what I mean? Like I feel like sometimes, and I'll just navigate that question a little bit. Yeah.
Like I feel like everybody's an athlete, and I feel like confidence wise, I feel like I can help anybody to some degree. Obviously, I'm going to send them to somebody else that might help them more, but I'm going to say like, listen, this is what I can do for you. This is what I can do for you. And obviously my path is working with athletes, and initially like a youth athlete, kind of building them up. But also like I see all people just as they age, that they still got that athlete in them, and they're trying to find it. And I love being able to teach those people how to move like an athlete and how to move better, so that they live longer and they stronger. Help. The beauty of it is I can literally find what their goals are, and I have the skills to direct them in the direction they want to go, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a ton of sense. And you know, you touched on a little bit in terms of like figuring out your path along the way, was kind of figuring out what didn't work for you, what you liked about certain elements, what you didn't like about other things, and then really making it yours. And that's the journey with our patients and with our athletes too, right? Is like finding what makes them tick. So if my dad is on here and I'm saying like, hey, like you're gonna continue to get older. You're not gonna get any younger, but like, do you know where your hamstring is? Do you know where your glute is? How many stairs do you walk up? If you have the option between an escalator and a staircase, how many times are you gonna choose the escalator? And are you choosing the escalator because of pain, or because of, you know, historical like bias, or whatever it might be? But that education piece I think is massive, and I follow this with you. I really kind of navigate your space, as creepy as it is. That's the world of social media. You know, just kind of following what you're doing and following the education piece and those that you're working with. And I think it's absolutely massive. You touched on a little bit, I think, in terms of the insurance piece with athletic therapists, because that's a barrier for a lot of athletic therapists too. And you're a young guy, you finished school fairly recently. And we had Scott Livingston on here, and we've had a bunch of ATs that have been in the game for a long time. And one of the terms is like, I don't want to be an ambulance chaser. You know what I mean? I'm not going to serve just those with insurance, or I'm missing a huge demographic of people that are spending a lot of money on coffee shops or booze or whatever, or personal trainers, when they could be spending that money on themselves, essentially, by working with somebody like you. So is the insurance piece a big thing for you, or is your sales tactic simply like, you're going to get better working with me?
The insurance, it has been a barrier, I'm not going to lie, but I did, like, when I came out of school, it was like, man, this sucks. I can't get insurance. I can't do this. And I kind of fell into that negative loop sometimes too. And it really, really drove me nuts, because I'm just like, there should be another option. And then coming from a strength conditioning background, I guess, and then going into the world of strength and conditioning and personal training, I was just like, man, these guys are making more money than me, and they don't have any insurance. So how are they selling themselves? How are they marketing themselves? And they're bringing them gifts, like everything. Like, their clients are so appreciative of what they're doing. So I'm like, I have some insurance. Like, that's a positive. Like, this person might be able to get some insurance for work with me, doing some personal training and some preventative stuff, right? Everybody has injuries. So I would say right now about 50% of my clients are paying out of pocket. Another 50%, surprisingly to me, are paying out of insurance, because I'm finding more and more pockets of insurance, and insurance continues to get better. I did take a little bit of a hit with the Jazz employees and the airport employees, because they had unlimited insurance coverage, and I did have quite a number of them. So I did take a little bit of a hit with that. But a lot of them are still coming to me paying out of pocket. So
yeah, no, it's great insight, man. And so I've had this conversation a few times in the past maybe 2 weeks, and that conversation sort of goes along the lines of talking to students or talking to new, or even just looking back through my own career. And it's like going through school, it's almost like we have these blinders on, and we have three options for work when we get out as an AT. I'm going to work in pro sport, I'm going to own my own clinic, or I'm going to take that therapist who's teaching me, I'm going to take their job. I'm going to be a professor in this program. And I think filling in all of this space between these three jobs is massive. And so hearing that it can be done when you follow and you navigate and you network and you want to be there, right? Like you talked about your clients wanting to be there and not working the workers' comp stuff and all that. But when your patients want to be there and you want to be there, it creates a nice relationship that really drives everybody forward, right?
And you hours. Like I don't know how many 10, 12-hour days or plus that I've worked, but I still had the energy at the end of the day, because I didn't have all my clients wanted to be there, and they were so appreciative of me. And I have a fantastic community of clients that the reason I have as much energy as I do and passion as I do is because of them. Like I never had that much passion when I was a kinesiologist. Like I said, those clients didn't want to be there, and really I didn't want to be there for somebody that didn't want to be there, if that makes sense.
And I think that's awesome. And we've had guests on here that are picking their own clients too, because that's part of it, right? Like if they're energy suckers and they're draining you, and at the end of the day, you're like, why am I doing this? They don't even want to get better. Then we end up in again, like what you touched on is already, like that negative cycle. And then you find yourself questioning what you're doing, why you're doing, am I good at it? Should I be doing this? Should I be doing something else? So finding clients that want to be there, or educating them so that they figure out that they actually do want to be there, and that they have to own their part in it, right? Like you educate, you coach, you facilitate, but you're not going to do the work for them.
Yeah, 100%.
Nice. Let's switch gears a little bit, because you had an awesome post the other day about running mechanics, right? You had some stuff about running mechanics on there, and you were talking about either pushing or pulling. So pulling the foot off the ground was what you were talking about, and as opposed to pushing the foot off the ground. So maybe just to get into some of the technical stuff, just for a brief interlude before we get back into some of the heavy, but so let's talk about that. Running mechanics was a big one. You were working with some athletes in the gym. Walk us through the context, maybe.
Okay, like I could get into this pretty deep, but I'll try to keep it brief. But basically, a lot of times I'm seeing runners coming into me. I've had quite a few runners as clients that it's just that injury cycle over and over again. And like our body should have the capacity to run. And a lot of times they're coming in and I've heard a lot of people also say there's a controversy there between heel strikers and forefoot runners, right? And I believe, there's a time and a place for a heel strike, but it shouldn't be at the start of your race. Everybody should be more of a forefoot runner based on biomechanics and gravity and falling forward, right? So there's three stages of running. You got your figure four, which is basically the position where you have the most weight on your forefoot, and the fall. So you want to use gravity to your advantage and fall forward as you run. But a lot of time people are so upright that they're driving from their hip flexors, and that's why I see so many runners with knee injuries, back injuries, and hip injuries, is because they're not using gravity to their advantage. They're not falling forward. They're straight up and they're reaching out. And then the third stage is that pull, right? So if you can pull and use your hamstrings to fall forward, you're going to reduce a lot of those injuries, because you're just going to be using your momentum to you're basically just falling and catching yourself over and over again. But a lot of runners they got the heel out or even just the foot out in front of them, and then they're just sending an equal and opposite reactive force back, and which is causing a lot of compression injuries, a lot of injuries, plantar fasciitis, calves, you name it. And I'm all right with them switching to that method later in their run, but if they're starting out that way, they're going to be struggling with injuries. And a lot of times there's weightlifting for runners, there's yoga for runners, there's nutrition for runners, but nobody actually addresses the skill of running.
You're right.
I don't know why. Like, there's books up the yin yang for everything for running except for teaching the skill of running. Like, we teach the skill, the triple threat position for basketball. We teach the skills in other sports, but we don't break running down into skills. So yeah, it's kind of a project that I really got into over COVID, because I've always been a sprinter, and I got into a lot of running and yoga over COVID because I didn't have the access to the gym. And of course, when I get into something myself, I definitely dive in 110%. So now I'm back to weightlifting again, but I would never give anything to my clients without me doing it myself as well. So it basically, and then I basically put a program together that looked into why runners were getting so much injuries, and it made a lot of sense. And then also, if you look at runners like Usain Bolt, or the guy, I can never pronounce his name, the Kipchoge or whatever, the guy set the 2-hour marathon record. Like, right. They've set them up to, when they put EMG on their quads during that drive phase that in strength conditioning we're always teaching, their quads actually turn off. So it's telling us that to lift their knee, they're actually pulling with their hamstring and glutes. And that's why they're being more efficient, and they're not having the injuries that everybody else has, even with their high volumes.
I love it, man. And that running program, I've kind of been watching from a distance, and I love that you've been putting that stuff together. And I'm sure people are, especially during COVID, like the number of people I sit out on the front porch at the beginning of this thing, and the number of people I'm watching running out there, I'm just like, oh my goodness, I should just open a clinic right here on my front porch, because like that pounding mechanism and the mechanics of, anyway, but it's great, man. The stuff that you're putting out, again, if anybody's not following, check it out, because there's a lot of entrepreneurial stuff you can mimic, you can imitate, you can jive with Myles, connect with Myles down the road on this stuff, because I think the more of us that there are, the less we're focused on competition, the more we're focused on sharing, the better off we are as a profession and as an integrative space. You know what I mean? Like that competitive, I got to be better than that person, or have more clients than that person, or how am I going to get clients if they're already getting them, comes back to like the authenticity and the drive to help people, and that that genuine caring mentality, I think, that most of us have in the athletic therapy field. And I can't speak to any others only than strength and conditioning, because those are the ones that I house. But a couple things through your running programming, all that you're doing out there, and your story that you shared with us, is like this constant evolution, and like taking advantage of the bus rides and the long things. Like, you could sit on Instagram and like just spend hours on that thing and get sucked into vortexes you never come out of. But you took the time to ride the bus. Like, instead of riding the bus, you rode the bus, man. You know what I mean? Like, you got on there, you did some stuff, you used your time wisely.
I slept on the bus too, so.
You slept on the bus. Yeah, you got to make a life on the bus. Absolutely. We've been there, man. Spent a lot of time doing that. But and then again, like, making the work by following your heart, right? And following kind of what you want to do, and going, I don't know how much self-reflection you do, but like, obviously some, in the fact that you picked up your bags and said, I need a change, I need to go somewhere else. And you went somewhere, physically you went somewhere else, but that allowed you to open yourself up to some new things. And maybe not necessarily like without a job and without some other things lined up, you went and you did it, instead of like the logical next step or having to do things a certain way. Things evolve naturally for you, right? And I think this is the unforced nature of being able to work with every single human being on the planet as an athletic therapist. You can do it anywhere, right? And as you find it and find your niche, you can take that wherever you go and help people. Yeah,
but you definitely have to take action. Like, you got to take action, and a lot of it's not going to work out, right? Like, you can see by just the books behind me. Like, I've read a ton of books, and most of those books are just books on me reflecting on where I want to go, and not even AT books, right? They're just books that I know people have made the mistakes that I've made, and I'm trying to have less of those mistakes, right? So, and still making plenty.
No, and I think that's it. And you know, knowing that those mistakes are what's going to guide the next step forward, or the next lateral step, or the next step back, until you start using your hamstring instead of your quads. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
all of these things are important lessons. You know what I mean? And so taking some time away from the athletic therapy and trying to be the next Scott Livingston or the next whoever that we're imitating, and being true
Yeah.
to yourself and following your things that mean the most to you and that resonate with you, allows you to create this space and allows you to fall into yoga, weightlifting, working in you know, developing your own space to work out of. And I think it's an amazing story, man. And I also love the component part, like, yeah, you say action, it takes action. Absolutely. Like, you force the hand a little bit, you add some exposure to some things, you
Yeah.
get turned down a few times, but you didn't let that stop you. And I think that's massive, right? And so you just keep rolling, you point out all the things that you've done, and you go out and you end up being at the beginning of your AT career in school, being one of the top students in the program, and really garnering, I'm sure, a lot of good classmates and people who are still probably looking up to you in terms of what you're doing out on the East Coast. So it's an amazing story. And then the last thing I wanted to come back around to is your preparation, right? Like you said, you love being prepared, and like, you don't necessarily love being the first responder, but you're good at it, you know? And so those elements of
Yeah.
preparedness for any first responder engagement as a therapist, they also allow you to be prepared for everything else, right? To pre-plan, to look at not just the immediate, but also like what's going to pay out down the line. Is that fair to say? Like, some of the bigger lessons that we learn, although applied in different areas, that we can use them any way we can in our careers as well.
100%. Yeah. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And so out on the East Coast, you mentioned there's not too many athletic therapists. So have you been able to navigate the space in terms of education outside of the people that you're working with? Have you gotten into, like, or have you considered moving into sort of like the schools or online platforms for teaching people either what athletic therapy is, or what it could be in the community beyond what you
Um,
already have?
not too much. Like, I have been part of the PATA meetings, a few of them. And in all honesty, like a lot of those people I find are in the university setting. So
Mhm.
they have that salary. Whereas like everything with me has been so focused on making a living myself.
Yeah.
And I really feel like if I really focus on putting good content out there, working really well with clients, that's going to provide a better platform for growing athletic therapy in general. But like education wise, like networking wise, like most of the people I've networked with are chiros, personal trainers, strength and conditioning coaches. Like I have a pretty close chiro that we kind of refer back and forth, and another physio that I refer back and forth with. So it's not really, so I've been able to navigate the health system as a whole, if that makes sense.
Yep. I think that's massive too, right? Not being afraid
Yeah.
to refer, and not having to feel like you have
Yeah.
to own everything in order to keep clients, right? It's not about keeping territory when it comes to clients. It's about helping them in the best manner possible. So that referral and not being territorial with it, I think, again, authenticity, communication, like these things that are redundant in terms of who we've had on here as guests and the things that work for them in successful careers, regardless of if it's on the pro sideline or in a clinic, a private clinic, or a clinic owned by somebody else. It's massive, man. And I think those are great points and amazing takeaways for anybody listening.
Well, yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard not to, especially at first, it's hard not to be territorial, because every client you get through your doors is money to help you make a living. But in the long run, that's not going to work out for you. You've got to reach out to other health practitioners that are going to help you out, because they know what you're good at, you know what they're good at. And there's going to be a lot of people that you can't trust, but you need to make that leap anyways, right? So
Yeah, no, beautiful stuff. We're getting close to an hour already. I don't know how this tends to happen when we get good conversation, but if anybody's on here has any questions or comments, or wants to to sort of have something to get to Myles, please type it in the chat box. Again, you can unmute yourself and chime in. Love to have some interaction here as well. But as we navigate that space, is there a book on your shelf or multiple books right now that you're reading non-AT, or one that comes to mind, a recent completion? All of those, that big giant stack behind you.
There's the book, just a minute.
I think he's pulling out a whole stack here. Yeah, beautiful.
Okay, all right. So I'm the one that I started the Instagram with, Gary V. Vaynerchuk. If you've heard of him, he's a little bit outrageous. But it got me started putting stuff out on Instagram, because it was discouraging at first because I only had like 10 followers. But like, really, I just want a local following, because I want basically those are the people that are going to be coming through the door. But eventually, if I'm going to be doing stuff online, I need to have some kind of brand. So he talks a lot about that in this one. So that one was one of the first ones I started with. And I think one of the first posts I ever put up on Instagram had a picture of this. So definitely recommend it. And then this one's a little known one. It's written by Danny Mate, and he's actually a physiotherapist down in the States that doesn't go through insurance, and it's called Fuck Insurance.
Yeah, there we go.
It's kind of an unorthodox book, but definitely the read, talks workshops, and a few other things in there. That was one that I started with and started getting clients with. So that's just two of the books there that I'd probably recommend.
Yeah, beautiful. I have this one that I'm reading right now that actually we just came off. I'm still kind of flying a little bit high from this last weekend. We had a practitioners retreat. I think I mentioned maybe coming out east in the summertime, hopefully when that's allowed. But a practitioners retreat this past weekend, and I was given a gift of a book called Think Like a Monk, and I'm only about 50 pages into it.
Is that Jay Shetty?
Jay Shetty. Yeah. Have you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
I know, but it's on the list. It's on the list to read.
Yeah. It's I'm 50 pages in, and I can't, like, I'm like, every conversation I have, like, can I get back to that book real quick? And it's this guy who kind of gave up his life to go and spend he became a monk for 3 years, and then came back and is in like Western civilization, society, whatever. Civilization might not be the right term anymore, but and navigating that space now with sort of this new mindset. And then I always kind of reach for these books that are a little bit out there. I love that last one. I'm going to pick that one up for sure. But the other one is it's The Paradox of Choice. I think the author's last name is Schwartz. Okay. It's basically like the more and more choice that we have, we end up like confusing ourselves as to what it is we actually want. So when you go to buy, his first page is like going to buy a pair of jeans or something like this. And you have so many choices when you go to buy jeans that all you wanted was that same pair you had 10 years ago. But the salesperson is like, do you want like boot cut or loose fit? You don't even know what those terms mean anymore, because there's so many damn pairs of jeans. But anyway, and then one more, just if you haven't read it yet, the other one is sort of relevant to practitioners, is called Change Maker, and that's John Berardi. So John Berardi with Precision Nutrition, and it's a great read in terms of like business formulation.
I have that one in Audible.
Nice.
Another one, if you haven't read it, actually, Darren, another AT, she gave me a recommendation for this one, was Book Yourself Solid.
Okay.
I can't remember who is the author, but if you're sitting down and you're trying to contemplate putting a business side of things together, or branding or whatever, that it's just a good way to go down. It's interactive and allows you to basically reflect on where you want to go.
Yeah, I think I just looked it up, as Michael Port, I think, is the author of that one, if it's the one that I'm looking at. Book Yourself Solid. Yeah, no, cool, man. And I love this. It's great to share resources and sort of like know that it's okay to read stuff that's not these giant textbooks back here that have changed order over the days, but you pull them out and you read them and reflect on those too. And you look at, sometimes like I go back and look at anatomy and neuroanatomy and all these different things differently because of the reading that I'm doing outside. And I think it's amazingly powerful stuff to get outside the box or explore the edges, whatever, and come back and then like really
Yeah.
recheck in and see where things are at. So a couple great reads
Yeah.
there
Well,
for
like
sure.
kind of on another note there too, is kind of just like how after you come out of school, you were talking about that kind of cookie cutter approach. And I was like, I don't remember half of the orthopedic assessments really, because I'm not going to treat a person differently. And it usually doesn't help me find the cause. It tells me what they have, but it doesn't help me find what the cause of their injury is. So it's kind of like, I see, like I've read other books and then coming back and looking at some of the stuff that I learned in school. And it's like, wow, I don't even remember this. I do this completely different and I find it works better. So it's just kind of, it's funny how things change.
Yeah, I always, when I have some younger therapists around, they're like, how do you do that? And they say the name of a test, and I'm like, I don't know, but I can show you what I'm looking at and doing here. I've lost the ability to recall that memorization of the names, but I think we could still walk through and get some answers, and that's it, right? Like trying to figure out root cause and how you're going to help somebody. So yeah, some great reads, Myles, and some really good shares here throughout this evening. We're getting on an hour. So again, if anybody has anything, please feel free to pipe in. This has been fantastic. I got to get out there. So I'm hoping, as everybody is, that COVID kind of decides to just, well, not disappear necessarily, but allow for some more interchange between provinces. Because I'd love to get out, see what you're doing, check in, and all these things down the road here, and navigate this a little bit further. So again, this is session 41 of First Start Let's Chat and Athletic Therapy Roundtable, brought to you by Mobility Tape. Myles Coldwell Athletic Therapy out on the East Coast in Nova Scotia is our guest this evening, sharing his story, sharing his knowledge, definitely sharing his passion, his vision, and his approach. It's been awesome, man. And just while we wait to see if there's a couple questions coming in here, next week we'll have a guest on that we haven't had a student on here yet, but we're going to have a current student in the Sheridan AT program on here next week to sort of get some insight into what's going on there and help us shape how we can help shape, and then how they can help shape us back and forth on this reciprocal relationship going back and forth with students, and really diving into what the differences are with COVID, working through school and labs, and how things are playing out in that space. The 18th will be Drew McDonald, who's with the Toronto Blue Jays. Unfortunately for them, he's now available because they're done their playoff run. He'll be on the 18th. The 21st is a Wednesday. That's going to be a seminar in mental health and addiction in sports with two people, two great humans, one of which is a former professional hockey player, goalie, who's a sports psychology coach, fully certified, and then another who works in the psychology realm, doing working with addiction and mental health. So they'll be on as primary guests. We'll have the CCMHS, which is the Center for Mental Health in Ottawa, a representative on from there as well on the 21st to talk about all of these avenues and channels. And then the 25th of October, we have Becky Swan, who's out on the other coast of Canada, doing some amazing stuff with AT, with the police force out in Vancouver. So yeah, a whole bunch of thank yous coming in, Myles, and I really appreciate you taking the time, man. This has been great. I look forward to connecting. I'm glad you got the piano moved. I know that was a big undertaking this week. And you did it safely. So this has been fantastic, man.
No problem, man. Anytime. Maybe I'll have to come on and interview you or something.
Yeah, well, let's do it. You don't have to interview me. Just come down. We'll share stories and share spaces. I feel like our spaces are pretty similar at this point in time in terms of what we're trying to do, and putting the table right in the middle of the gym floor and saying, like, this matters. So like squat a bunch, but then come over here and do some other stuff, and then go back and squat a bunch. We'll keep you moving. So yeah, man, it's been fantastic.
I do have some cousins in Ontario, so I'll have to come visit.
Okay, perfect, man. We'll make that work, and whenever you do, let us know, and we'll have you in our space, and we'll get you out to check some things out over here. So again, Myles Coldwell. If you don't follow him already, at Coldwell Athletic Therapy. Although not in his local community, he is definitely a large part of this AT community and the integrative space, and really learning and talking through this whole thing has been fantastic. For everybody else, again, joining live this evening, thank you so much for your time. And then anybody picking this up on the podcast or the YouTube channel, please be reminded that membership is still available as well for $10 a month. You're getting 0.4 CEUs for every session. You get 1.6 CEUs per month for $10, which is a pretty good deal when it comes to CEUs, especially during COVID. Not that it's a push, but a little bit of added value there on top of the conversation. So those are still available. And again, the 21st also, just to retrack, all proceeds from that, I think it's going to be $39 a head to attend that, but 100% of those registration fees are going to advocates for mental health and addiction. So no money being made there, good cause, education, sharing the knowledge. Myles, I'll let you go, man. It's been great. I know it's late there, so really appreciate it, man. Let's stay in touch, and good luck with things out there. Thank you for sharing all of the things that you did. And I'm sure you'll have plenty of new followers and plenty of people reaching out for some more down the road.
Thanks, James. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Okay. Good night, everybody. I'll hit stop and have a good evening. If you're willing to stay, I'll hang out for 5 minutes. Good night.
Thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this community. Check us out online, firststartherapy.com. That's FIRSTAR therapy.com. Or email us with feedback, consult@firststartherapy.com. CONSULT@firststartherapy.com. On Instagram @firststar.therapy, and our podcast host @letschat.at. This is First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast.